You need to be prepared because incidents do happen. We can't pretend that everything is secure and nothing will harm us, because it's better to know that you are being targeted, that you are being hit by cyber attacks and do something about it, than to just close your eyes and pretend this is not a problem. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. I'll start a little bit with the threats and trends, but you already have had quite a few presentations about that, so I'll go quite quickly through that. And then maybe the most exciting part is from my previous job at NorCert. I've been involved in the incident handling of various incidents, and I'll take a couple of case studies from those incidents and go through them for you. And then I have a part with incident handling, how to do it, and how to prepare. So first, a little bit about me. So I'm currently a research scientist at SINTEF. I started in that job 2 weeks ago, so I'm quite new at doing that. I have a PhD from before. I also teach a class in incident management and contingency planning at HIG, the Gjøvik campus in Norway. And well, I've been working for NorCert the last 4 years, doing various things like incident handling, also managing the incident handling teams and working with information sharing. And I did have another color of my hair when they took this picture in front of all the fancy screens. You also saw those screens from our operations center yesterday in Rafi's presentation. It's the same operations center. So I was one of the persons raising my hand. So what do we see? This is just an attempt of categorizing the different threats into who's behind. Usually at the CERT we don't focus on attribution and who's behind. We focus on detecting the incidents, to informing the victims, and to help them to how to handle the incidents. But it can be a useful way if you want to see what threats you are facing today. And of course, it's not like it's every threat actor is in his own box here. We can see that financial crime and espionage also might be, I don't know if it's the same threat actors, but they for sure they are collaborating and they are sharing information and they are learning from each other's, reusing tools and so on. At the NSM and NorCert, we were particularly concerned about the more sophisticated threats and looking into espionage cases, and also worried, of course, about the more serious things like sabotage and using cyber weapons, so to say, in a conflict. So we were focused mostly on what was threatening national security, but of course we were also working for the general health of the internet, so doing abuse handling and collaborating with partners both nationally and internationally. You might not know that in Norway we have actually set up some sectorial certs lately. So there's one cert that has worked for more than a year now that is focused on financial crime. It's the finance cert. So they are looking more into the banking trojans and so on. So at NorCert, the national cert, we were more focused on threats, advanced threats. So what can we say about the espionage that is hitting Norway? I choose to refer to the NIS, the National Intelligence Service. They have published an open report where they describe the threats. And this is as far as I go into attribution in my talk today. But they actually say in this report openly that modern espionage is most efficiently carried out via network operations. It requires less effort, it's a lower chance of getting caught, and so on. And there are significant amounts of information being stolen, as we all know about. They also say here in the report that Russia and China are the most active nation states that are behind network operations against Norway. So how do they get into our systems? How do they compromise us? These are the most prominent attack vectors that we see in the incidents that we have been handling. A lot of spear phishing that we all know about. It's also an element of gathering information, doing reconnaissance, preparing for spear phishing attacks. You can often find a lot of information online that can be used later on. And then we have also seen the last couple of years an increase in watering hole attacks, where you do a web compromise and you find some vulnerability in a website that your target group is likely to visit, and you put up a script in there. What we also see is that they actually use first they profile the users going to that watering hole site, and they look for vulnerabilities. So check what kind of browser you're using, what kind of browser plugins, do you have Java updated, and so on. And then that information can be used later on for a more advanced attack. And they also sometimes have whitelists of interesting targets that they want to compromise, or they want to somehow profile and then later carry out larger network operations. Since at NorCert we have a national sensor network, we collaborate with both private and also, of course, with the government institutions that are part of our sensor network. We are able to see some of these threats and look into to the details of many of these incidents. So credential harvesting is another thing that we see, and we also see that usually there are known vulnerabilities being abused. So if you can get your patching cycle fast, you actually have you can protect against some of these attacks. But then, if you are unlucky, if you're a very attractive target, you might end up on the A list, where the attackers put in their A team and they actually use their 0 days. We have seen 0 days being used in cases against Norwegian victims. And physical delivery, as using memory sticks and so on, is something that we rarely come up on. But of course, it can be also an infection vector. And one thing that's important is to think it's not the vulnerability themselves that are attacking us. It's someone with intention, has planned operations. They have a plan for compromising the targets. So if you are a target to these most advanced threat actors, they will try every method that they can to get into your network. So then you are facing a quite hard battle to be able to protect yourself. So these are some of the vulnerabilities that are being exploited out there. Anyone want to guess what's the most often used vulnerability? Any of these products that are particularly vulnerable? WordPress, yeah, that's often used. Yeah. Any other? Java. We've seen a lot of Java. We actually had to go a couple of years out. We went out to the press, NorCert, and told Norwegian citizens to disable Java because it was exploited so much, and there was a 0 day at that time. You couldn't patch it, and almost everyone in Norway uses, at that time, used Java to be able to log into their bank account in and do their net banking. And that has actually changed now. A lot of the banks have got rid of Java. So now if you use Java-free login to your bank, I would say just disable it if you don't need to use it for some business critical application or whatever. Any other? Yeah, so what about this vulnerability? It's often it's the users that do things that can also get themselves compromised. So user awareness training is really important aspect as well. So for instance, the Drupal, we saw that there was a vulnerability there with automated script that looked for vulnerable servers all over the world. So if you hadn't patched your Drupal installation within 7 hours, you were almost guaranteed that you had been compromised. OpenX, another as a framework for banner ads, used a lot, and we had several incidents in Norway where we can have malvertising being spread because of vulnerable OpenX installations. And of course, you have all these fancy new or spectacular vulnerabilities. And the problem here is, as was mentioned yesterday, you can't really get rid of all the old stuff. So you get all the new vulnerabilities now, and then you still have a bunch of the old stuff laying there, so it's just piling up. So okay, we are vulnerable. So let's look at some cases. So first case is an industrial espionage case in Norway. I had to anonymize this one to not reveal too many details. But first of all, anyone recognize this? Know what this is? Have you seen it before? It's a very, very easy way of being totally owned if you're not updated all your systems. So this is a one-liner showing how you can actually get compromised by just having one line of code into your system. It will create a web shell that a shell that the intruder can use to get around in your systems. This is the PHP version of it. There are other versions of it as well. So just look at this nice, good FireEye report if you want to look into more about this China Shopper web shell, which is playing a part in this story. So what happened was, it's around a year ago, a little bit more, Norsert was contacted by a company in the technology, advanced technology industry in Norway. They had discovered themselves that they were compromised. So there are actually 3 ways that we usually detect those espionage incidents. It's companies that detect it themselves. It's being detected in the Norsert NSM sensor network, or it's being reported by a third party. So what do you think is the most usual way of detecting? Third party, yeah. So a company detecting themselves is actually not that often, but this case it happened. So they had noticed that something was strange with their email exchange server. So they contacted their service provider and asked them to come and look into this. What's going on with their email server? So what do you guess was happening with their email server? It was actually being detected at the exfiltration stage. So this means you're actually totally compromised and things are going out from your network. So most likely the attackers had been there a while, they had poked around in the systems and they had found what they were interested in, and they were now starting to exfiltrate all the information that they wanted. So what was actually going on with their email server? They had run out of disk space. And that was because there was a lot of data piling up in there. And that data was sitting there, being ready to be sent out by HTTP GET requests. So it seems like they wanted to do this a little bit slowly to avoid being detected. But somehow that plan didn't work and they sort of crashed the email system instead. So there were large files there. They were appearing to be image files, JPEG files, But actually, when you look at them, they were password-protected RAR files. So that was what's going on in this company. So in this case, we were part in coordinating some of the incident response with the victim, and we also helped them with performing some analysis, like forensic analysis. And we actually were able to find the initial attack vector. It's not always that you can find that. And it was a vulnerability in Cold Fusion, Adobe Cold Fusion, that they were using as a framework that gave the attackers the ability to upload this China Shopper web shell. And that was actually all they needed. Once they were in, they could start looking around, getting the information, and then starting to exfiltrate it. And there was a problem because it's not very easy to decrypt these encrypted RAR files. So it took a while actually before our analysts were able to do that, and then that gave the full picture for the company of what they actually had lost. So that was quite interesting for them to see. So we found the password, and they could decrypt all their files and look into what was being lost. And that was thousands of documents, and it was really all their intellectual property. So that's one case. Any questions to this case? Or I'm happy to take questions at the end. Yeah. Yeah.
How did they figure out with what was like stolen? Was it just the files that were there that they had read it, or could they see what?
They could see the files that were compressed into this encrypted RAR files.
Yeah, so by that you assume that was what was stolen, sort of?
So that was what the attackers had found in their networks and made ready to be exfiltrated. And some of that stuff had already been exfiltrated, and then they sort of ran into the issue when they filled up the disk, and they couldn't get all the rest of it. Yeah.
I was thinking if they could figure out what had been.
Yeah, but you mean, I mean, if they had looked around, they had already seen it. Yeah. So, yeah.
And the Exchange server was in-house, so it wasn't like third-party hosted.
No.
But maybe they looked at the logs of the GET request.
Yeah.
Through, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you could also look into the logs.
They knew that what was stolen. If you have a log of HTTP GET request passed through, then that's
Yeah.
the answer, right?
Yeah, so they could see the amount of information, and it was a big amount. So that was one case, sad case. This is another case, which is, I think, a little bit more happy, maybe. I think you maybe heard about this case because it hit the media, also a little bit internationally last year. So this case was about targeted or a very wide targeted spear phishing attack against the energy sector in Norway. It was not only the energy sector in Norway, it was the energy sector in general. And this campaign is known under different names, described by security companies. Energetic Bear is the CrowdStrike name for the campaign. It was also called, I think, Crouching Yeti or something. Yeah, different names, and you can get a little bit confused about all these different names of the same thing. But what we saw in Norway, it was during the summer, so it was before this campaign got publicly known. We had reports from several of our companies in our sensor network and other companies that we are collaborating with. And we also detected some suspicious traffic in our sensors. And while looking into different spear phishing attacks, we could see that they were related. So this is one. So if you read this, it says that 300 companies have been hit by cyber attack. It was not actually the case. So that's one thing you learn when you deal with media, is that they never report this correctly. So the case was actually that we had issued a campaign where we wanted to inform the whole energy and oil and gas sector of Norway about this this campaign, and we also distributed a set of indicators that we wanted them to look for in their systems, and this was sent out to more than 300 companies. So it was not 300 companies that were hit by the campaign. But what we have seen was that by investigating some spear phishing emails, we could see that on the recipient list there were about 50 or so Norwegian recipients of one of the spear phishing emails, and those were very. The selection was very good. You could see that those were people working in the oil and gas and energy sector. There were also people working at, let's say, insurance company, but that was the person handling insurance against the energy sector. So everyone was kind of relevant. We don't know what information that was used to create these spear phishing emails, but it might have been a list of participants to a conference or something like that that was being abused. This is how one of the emails that we looked at looked like. A parcel has arrived, and you need to click this link. Who would click this? No one. Yeah. It looks very fishy, doesn't it? And it looks like what you would normally get from this kind of, let's say, normal virus or banking trojans or whatever campaigns that are out there. So what would actually happen if you open this PDF? What's inside there? Anyone knows or remembers the malware used in the energetic beer campaign? It was called Havex. Havex is, so since this contained Havex, we got really concerned, because that's a Trojan looking for, it can download a module that looks for attached industrial control systems. And when that's being sent out to people in the energy sector, that was something that we were quite concerned about. This is another spear phishing email, a conference invitation, which also tied to the same campaign. We saw that if you open this doc file, it would start connecting to the same infrastructure in the background as we saw in the previous one. So that was how we related those spear phishing emails. And this, I think, is a little bit more clever. And if you're working with research and you want to attend this conference, you might want to open that conference program file. So this is from the malware analysis that was done at NorCert. And this is analysis of the module that looks for the OPC servers. So you see that it's starting to look for connected systems, and since we, in this case, had also emulated that there were some system talking this protocol, you can see that it has found one of them. What we didn't see in Norway was this, which was also connected to the same thing, and so they didn't only use spear phishing to try to get this malware out. They also compromised websites of vendors, suppliers to the energy sector, like for instance this unlucky company that actually got their website compromised, and in the software download section, if you download the latest update to the software, you will also get the Havex integrated into the software. So that's a kind of bad thing to do. So, but we didn't see any of these in Norway. But we have had other cases where we have seen that the threat actors, in order to reach their targets that are quite good at securing their systems, they will try to instead compromise a subcontractor or a vendor and get into the systems that way. Okay, I need to move along here. I see. So the third case, I actually talked about this one a couple of years ago at the conference. It's about an APT CNC proxy server in Norway. So APT was the big buzzword after the Mandiant report, the APT-1 report. If you look at this map, you can see that they only investigated, or they only found one infection in Norway in their work. But when we read this paper and we looked at the indicators, we can see that this was actually, at that time, we had around 20 cases related to this exact campaign. But I want to talk about an earlier APT, advanced persistent threat, for those of you that don't know the terminology. This is from 2011. I don't know if anyone remembers this report by Dell SecureWorks about the HTRAN protocol. So in 2011, August 2011, this report was released, published, and that was a very interesting report for us working at NorCert. It was about HTRAN. If you don't know what HTRAN is, that is a well-known Chinese old hacker tool. So Dell SecureWorks, they were researching one of the malware families that were involved in the RSA breach when they came upon an interesting pattern in the network traffic. So when the sample that they analyzed attempted to connect to the C2 server, the command and control server, it returned a plain text error message. So you have it there. Connection to fun. Instead of the response that they actually expected. And this led them to look into this old hacker tool. So the HTRAN code is written so that if the connection bouncer is enabled to contact a hidden destination in order to relay incoming traffic, so they're using proxies to relay traffic to try to hide where the actual intrusions are coming from. This error message containing the target host and the port parameters will be sent to the connecting client. As long as there are no connection issues, that's okay. And that can actually function to hide the true location of the command and control server. But if you have any connection downtime, problems with the connection, that will actually reveal the location of the hidden command and control host. So Dell SecureWorks, they implemented a scanning tool system that checks for this error message across the world. And they did some active probing to try to find where those servers were. And that resulted in this map. I know it's a little bit, you can't really see everything on this map, but do you see something interesting here that would interest the NorCert at least? You see Norway is up here, and that's a proxy server. So that, of course, attracted our interest. And that was quite funny because we had, we had actually looked at this case before that report was published. And we had done some analysis on that particular server. And this is the result from the analyzed traffic. We can see here that the attacker is logging on to, so this is the proxy server. So the attacker logs on. Before the attacker logs on using a remote desktop protocol, we see that all these TCP connections that are coming in from the compromised servers are being rejected. It's only when someone has logged in here that they are going through the proxy server. So what could we do with this information as a national cert? We used it for victim notification. So we could see the IP addresses of the victims in this case, and they were all actually outside of Norway. So you had to use the search channels to notify that they had these intrusions. Here you can also see a timeline of the network traffic. So you can see whenever someone is logging on to this proxy server, there's activity and encrypted traffic is going through. So how do we do this incident handling of cyber espionage? So what is the reaction of the victim when you inform them of this? We have had other incidents, of course, in Norway where we have reached out to victims. In this case that I just went through, it was the national CERT in that country that responded to the victims, and they were major part of the victims were in the US, and they were research institutions. But in this case, when we reach out to victims in Norway, we see that what is a common reaction is that they're not prepared because they haven't thought about this. They're not aware that they are on the target list, so to say. At least that's for the first time when you get this. The second, third, and so on, it starts getting better. And then you realize you actually have something of value that you need to protect. So you need to do an assessment of where your values are, do the risk analysis, and do the business impact analysis and so on, and figure out what you need to protect in your network. And then you can avoid these feelings. And I like to refer to this incident response lifecycle, a very nice framework by NIST that I'm also teaching in my class. So the first thing you need to do is, of course, to be prepared. So being prepared, that's a lot of work. You need to know your network. You need to have a clear understanding of where your values are. You need to be quick on updating and patching. And of course, if you have everything in the cloud, are you in control? Do you know how to do incident handling if you get compromised? Can you get to the logs? That could be a problem. You need to work this out beforehand with your cloud service provider. And you need to have some IT security personnel, either in your company or outsourcers. So someone need to actually look into the logs. You need to enable the logs, and you need to look at them and do threat intelligence. So your IDS is only as useful as what you feed into it. And then, of course, contingency planning, be prepared, and of course also try to rehearse your plan. So if you have some fancy plans of how to move to another location, how to roll back to backups and so on, you need to check that you can actually do that when the situation arises. And then it's to detect, to analyze, and logging is very important. We see in several cases that you can't actually figure out how you got infected because your logs, they don't go that far back in time. That's a problem. So you have no idea what was the initial vulnerability that was being used to enter into your system. That means it's also very hard to get rid of the intruder. So you need to have all this logging in place. And what we have seen lately is that with the watering holes is that they're using encrypted traffic. And that means you might need to also do some decryption to be able to detect things. And then when you have discovered that you're a victim, okay, I'm soon done. Yeah. You have either been informed, so most likely you have been informed by a third party, or you have detected it yourself. What do? You need to have a strategy. What to do? Select a strategy. Figure out if you want to. So maybe if you are prepared, if you have all your monitoring system up and running and so on, you can actually decide to wait and look and learn what is actually the attacker doing. And that's also where you can put in a possible honeypot operation. Some of the most the companies that have a quite good level of security, they have also performed honeypot operations in some of these cases. And then when you decide to clean up, you need to do it properly. If you don't know how to do it yourself, you need to hire someone to help you with that, because that's really complex. and then to try to evaluate and learn from the incident handling, put that back into your contingency plans, use it as case studies to train new employees and so on.